Hey guys, David Robinson here. Welcome to the Apartment Investing Journey. I am really excited about our guest today. We've got someone that has accomplished some very impressive things in a very short period of time. And he's got a great story that I think will inspire you and help you in your own journey. A little bit about our guest. Tim Bratz is the CEO and founder of Legacy Wealth Holdings, a real estate investment company that acquires and transforms distressed apartment buildings into high-yield assets for his own portfolio. Tim has a portfolio of 3,400 units valued at over $270 million. Working in real estate, Tim has built a passive business and created a residual income that allows him to live the lifestyle of his choice. He's here to educate and empower others to become financially free through commercial real estate. So with that said, Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey, man, David, I appreciate you having me, man. Thank you for all the value and that you put out there and all the knowledge that you share. So excited to be here.
Oh, man, my pleasure. Well, thank you for taking some time. I'm excited to get into your story. And so as I do with all my guests, if you don't mind, just back up and tell us your story. How did you get into the real estate world and walk us through how you've gotten to where you're at today?
Yeah, man. So just as a quick heads up, I just got into my, actually, let me tell the story and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
You might see some people walking in the background.
That's great. That's great.
Stuff going on at the house.
Cool.
So, yeah, man, I was going through college when the market was going gangbusters. 03 to 07, everybody's making money in real estate. If you want to make money, you want to build wealth, get involved in real estate. And so as a 20-year-old kid, that's what motivated me back then. And after I graduated from college, I got into real estate. And I'm from Cleveland, Ohio originally. My brother was living out in New York City and, working for the government out there. And he said, hey, man, come and live with me and find a job out here. So I knew I wanted to get involved in real estate. Didn't really know what. I looked at mortgages. I looked at the brokerage side of things because I thought that's how you got involved in real estate. I didn't understand the world of investing initially. And so I took my real estate license when I got up to New York City and went and worked for this little boutique commercial real estate firm. And they did a lot of like investment sales, retail leasing, office leasing, all that kind of brokerage stuff. And so, Manhattan is where we were headquartered, and everything on the ground floor is retail space, ton of office space there. And I would just go and cold call on different businesses that wanted to either expand or landlords that had vacant retail space, and got a couple of listings, which is, pretty decent as a punk 22-year-old kid. And took me about 8 or 9 months to close my first deal. And it was a little 400 square foot, used to be like this art studio, 400 square feet in the Greenwich Village area of New York City, and ended up leasing it to a falafel shop for $10,000 a month, 400 square feet. And it was a 12-year lease term. There were 4% annual escalations. And if you do the math on that, 12 years, 4% increases, everything, it was like 1.8, 1.9, I think, $million that this landlord was going to make over the next 12 years for doing something at one point in time. And the idea of residual income and passive income really got planted into my mind. I was like, I need to be doing that instead of brokering real estate. And so, looked at some stuff to try to buy up in New York City. They're just, 22 years old, I don't have any money, and it just wasn't going to happen. So, pretty bad winter. I decided to move down to Charleston, South Carolina, is actually where I'm talking to you from right now. I'll come full circle on this story because I just moved back to Charleston 2 days ago.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And I was down in Charleston, South Carolina. I lived there from 2008 to 2013 about. And when I was down there, I bought my first house. I go through this whole process of like just inundating myself with education and taking all the courses and signing up for all this online stuff and, watching the YouTube videos and following the gurus and all that kind of thing. And for 6 months, man, I just went all in on the education side. And I realized that you don't learn how to swim by reading about swimming in a book. You learn how to swim by jumping in the water and actually doing it, right? And I think real estate's the exact same thing. You got to just go out and do it. As much as you want to read, like you're going to get kicked in the teeth. You're going to trip and fall forward and have all this stuff happen. It's part of the process, right? It's part of the education, and you pay lots of money to go to college and to go to school. And guess what? You lose lots of money, and that's how you're educated in real estate. At least that's how I did it. So, I've been in real estate for 11 years and really only got good about 3-4 years ago. It's pretty bad for the first 7-8 years of it. But I went out and I found the cheapest house on the MLS, and it was a little dumpy duplex for $25,000. This is 2009 now. So this is like spring of 2009. I think I bought it in May. And it was a little dumpy duplex, $25,000, the cheapest on the entire MLS. And cool, awesome. There's $25,000 property. Only problem was I didn't have $25,000. So how do you go out and find $25,000? I could have told myself, you don't have $25,000. Don't do it. You can't do it. And then go back to finding a job or something, right? And I think a lot of people, what separates people who are really successful versus people who are not, or just kind of going through the motions of their daily life, is that some people listen to that inner voice and they just say, hey, I can't do something, to make a statement, usually a self-limiting statement, and it just shuts down their brain and they stop thinking about what the possibility is, right? Versus, like, I was never that person. I was always like, well, how could I find the money? Who does have money? And I started asking myself questions. I think when you ask yourself questions, it leads you down this path of actually getting answers, or asking better questions, which lead to better answers. And you just become more resourceful. You become more of a problem solver if you ask questions versus making a statement. And so for me, I always like, how could I find the money? Where could I get the money? Do I have any relatives? Do I have any friends? And I was 23 years old. This is Penelope. Say hi.
Hey there.
That's David. So I end up going through this this questioning process of how do I go out and get the money? And I ended up, none of my friends have any money. We're all 23 years old. They're all blowing it at the bars, right? I had a few $1,000s saved up, really, that I was living off of. I had about 10 grand, 9 grand or something saved up. I spent about 5 of it or 6 of it over the course of like 6 months of studying. And so I only had a few $1,000s left. But I had this credit card, and I had this credit card that had a $3,000 limit. I had gotten it when I graduated from college about, a year and 2 months before, maybe 15 months prior. And I had a $3,000 limit on there. But I remember reading somewhere that I could actually call up the credit card company and they would increase the limit if you just ask for it. And so I called up my credit card company and I said, hey, I'm about to make a big purchase. Is there any chance that you can increase my limit? The lady on the other line says, yeah, sure. Like, how much of a limit increase do you need? And I said, I need $100,000, probably with my finger like this, $100,000, right? And she starts laughing at me. She's like, I'm sorry, you've been an amazing customer for the past, 13 months that you've been a customer of ours, but we're just not going to give you a $100,000 increase on your limit. I said, well, how much can you give me? She said, we'll give you 15. And I was like, done, So they increased my limit. I get some of those balance transfer checks. And it was one of these things where it was $200 one time, no interest charges for 6 months. So I'm like, dude, I can finance this thing, at least $15,000 of it for $200. And so the cost of capital was pretty low. And then I used the other $3,000, $4,000 that was in my bank account, and I actually did the work on the property personally. And so I love you, baby. Can you sit right here?
No.
Hey, she wants to be in the show. Come on.
So I end up buying the house on the credit card, essentially. I physically did the work, literally Googling and YouTubing how to install carpet, how to install fixtures, how to do all those kinds of things while we were there. So we ended up, when I say we, I had a buddy of mine who I literally paid in pizza and beer to come and help out, and we renovate the entire house. I create some signage and I pass out flyers and I put some bandit signs out, and I end up holding an open house. And I had one of the neighbors came in and offered me $33,000 for the house. And so I was all in for about $19,000, and I ended up selling it for, I ended up buying the house for 14 grand. That's what I ended up closing on it for, put a few $1,000s into it. And then I was all in for about 19 grand with closing costs and everything else. And I sold it for 33 cash, biggest check I ever had. And I made 14 grand. It was my first deal I ever did. And I was hooked. And I'm like, let's go do it again. And I think a lot of us get into this commercial real estate side of things and because of the same reason that I got in, right? The residual income, the allure of passive income, that mailbox money. The difference is, though, we all get like, we don't know the path, so we all get stuck in this like transactional realm, right? Of flipping houses or trading our time for money and transactionally, buying and fixing and flipping an apartment building even. And that never really like sat with me. That's what happened. I had to I have to go out and make a bunch of money in order to go and invest it into these passive income producing assets. And so I went down that hole and I started wholesaling properties. I started doing the HGTV retail flip type stuff. I got in like the turnkey single family rental type stuff. And then I got some small apartment buildings, but really it was more flips. I'd buy an 8-unit building, fix it all up. I'd be all in for $80,000. I'd sell it for $140,000. This is like 2012, 2013 when the market wasn't as good as it is now. And it was always transactional. And I just kept on trading up. And I was doing all these different things and doing property management and all this stuff. And I remember sitting back about 2.5, 3 years ago, and I looked at like where I was spending my time, where I was making my money, where I was building my wealth, and realized that like 90% of my net worth came from apartments, but it was 10% of my time. I had a few hundred units that we had built up. And I'm just like, I wonder if I just took my team's resource and my team and all my resources and just pivoted and told my acquisition guy. I remember going in that Monday, I'm like, hey, listen, you're not looking at houses anymore. You're only looking at apartments. Took my project manager. You're not renovating houses anymore. You're only renovating apartments. And took my dispositions guy who was selling houses. You're not selling houses anymore. You're only managing and asset managing apartments. And that's what we did. And I think, a lot of people are afraid of like burning the ships and how am I going to pay my bills? And I understand like the conservative and safety net type mentality of not wanting to quit your job or not wanting to give up something that's already making money and stuff. But I do think there's a significant amount of value and power in just making a declaration to the universe of saying, this is all I'm doing. Because every time I've ever done that, you know what happens? The universe comes and gives me those opportunities. The next deal that comes across my plate after that Monday was an 11-unit apartment building in an A-class area, and we got it under contract for $225,000. Turn around, and I still needed some money. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work for a small building, and it would have taken a lot of my team's time and resources to manage that over the next 12 months versus just wholesaling it. And so I ended up contracting it for $225,000. I sold it for $330,000 30 days later, pocketed about $87,000 net to me and my company, which then gives us enough breathing room to go out and do more deals. Found a 20-unit apartment building, found a 24-unit apartment building, came across a 74-unit apartment portfolio, bought a 48-unit apartment building, and then boom, I had about 600 or 700 units in beginning of 2018, and this portfolio comes across at 700 units down in Georgia, 730 units down in Georgia, and it's just like totally distressed. Couple guys out of New York, some brokers out of there, or not brokers, Wall Street guys making millions of dollars on Wall Street. And they think just, I don't need to know anybody. I don't need to get educated on this. I don't need to interview the management companies. Let me just go and park money in real estate. It's passive, right? No, it's like you and me going to a restaurant and saying, we should open a bar, right? We should buy a restaurant.
Right.
We eating here, so why couldn't we run one? Dude, it's a different business. And so these couple of Wall Street guys bought these properties a couple years before, got just hammered by the management company, totally beat up. And what happened was the property was like 50% occupied and needed a ton of capital improvements. And it was just a tough property. So it was too big for a lot of the small investors because they couldn't qualify for it. And it was too screwed up for any of the hedge funds or REITs because none of them wanted to put in the work. So I was kind of in this little niche, this little pocket where I could qualify for it. And I was willing to do the work. I was willing to roll up my sleeves, get my hands dirty a little bit. So we ended up making an offer. I bought it for $15,000 a unit, and I put another $20,000 a unit into it. This is 2018, man. So this is 2 years ago, and this is really the portfolio that boom
took
doubled.
you to another level.
Yeah. Because now I was at 1,500 units.
Yeah.
That took me from like 600, 650 or whatever to about like 14, 1500, whatever it was. And so now I got this portfolio. We're renovating it. We're hammering away at it. We're all in for about 25 million bucks. And we're in the process of refinancing it right now. And the valuation's coming in around 50 to $53 million. Insane, right? And so my entire, going back is like you make a declaration and all of a sudden this is the kind of stuff that pops up. And that then gave me the momentum to go find another portfolio, another apartment building, another 400 units, another 200 units, another 50 unit, another 24 unit. And I just kept on buying apartment buildings, realizing I just need to build up my balance sheet in order to be able to qualify for these bigger portfolios. So, you fast forward, I'm at 3,400 units today. I got another 100 units closing in 3 days from now. I got 260 some units closing in 2 weeks. I got another 160 units where those 260 are closing next month. And so it's going to be a total of 400 units that we have in that area. And so it's just crazy, man. You build up the momentum and all of a sudden these deals start, hey, Tim, you're so lucky. You get all this deal flow and all this. Dude, I've been planting seeds and shoveling shit for the past 11 years in order to get the opportunities that I have today, right? So it's not like I just got lucky. It's you got to plant seeds. And a lot of people I see, they get into apartments, and I coach on some of this stuff, right? I'm not some guru, but I do 4 events a year, and people come up to me and they're like, hey man, like I'm going to hold out for a 100 unit or a 200 unit building. I'm not going to do any of this small stuff. I'm like, listen, man, you don't get the 200 unit buildings unless you have a portfolio, unless you've already done some deals and people know that you're buying apartment buildings. You got to go get some small victories. It's easier to, you raise money on a small deal, then it gets easier to raise money on bigger deals. You go and buy some small deals, and the brokers respect you and start bringing you the bigger deals. And the operations, you can fumble on the small deals. You don't want to fumble on the big deal, because as much as an apartment building can grow your net worth and grow your income and grow your residual, it can take your legs out, man. And one bad deal can totally wipe you out. So you don't want to screw that up.
Well, man, you unleashed a lot there, and what a powerful story of I love where you just put your foot down and said, all right, we're burning the ships. We're pivoting the entire business model and staying focused on this particular area of the business that was 90% of your net worth, but 10% of your time. Mm-hmm. So in that time frame, I want to go back a little bit, and I want to dive into a little bit of detail on that process for you. So, if I have the story correctly, you got into the business, 22 years old. You made the move down to South Carolina in 2008, and that's when you started to say, "All right, that's when you bought the duplex." And you started doing fix and flip, wholesaling, transactional type business. And then when was it when you said, at what time frame was it when you said, all right, we're going to pivot into apartment buildings?
So that was just in 2017, summer of 2017. Okay. So about 2.5, almost 3 years ago. Okay. I said that. So I kind of fast forwarded through the story. I mean, I could,
No, that's all right. Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
But the thing is like, so as crazy as this is like in 2010, I had built a portfolio of just 10 units. I had 10 properties, including my own primary residence. I was 25-year-old, and I had 2 of my buddies living with me. And so I turned my actual liability of my own primary residence into an asset that was generating rental income as well. And then I had 9 other rental properties. And I'm living in Charleston, South Carolina at the time. It's 2010. And I wasn't rich, but after the passive income that came in from those 10 properties covered all the operating expenses, all the debt service, and put another $3,000 a month in my pocket. Okay. Now I self-managed, right? So I was able to save a little bit of money there. But it wasn't a lot of hard work, and I wasn't rich, right? But I had $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
To just go out and hang out and go to the bars and do some fun stuff, go on vacations with. And so I'm financially free at the age of 25 years old. At that time, though, I also got introduced into another business. It was kind of like one of these, it was kind of like a network marketing type business, which I met I met some amazing people and got some amazing personal development in there, but there just wasn't money in that. And I ended up selling those 10 units, what was already working. I sold them in order to focus on this other shiny object over here, which is another lesson in itself, right? Which I made some amazing friends, and actually one of my biggest joint venture partners in apartment buildings is from that.
Gotcha.
And learned how to public speak and learned how to personal develop, and got introduced to guys like Jim Rohn and all these personal development speakers and stuff. And so it was a benefit in that regard, but I didn't make any money. And so for 2 years, I really drank the juice in this company and went completely broke. Dude, I had $25,000 of credit card debt and $80 in my pocket in August of 2012.
Wow.
So super broke, you know, and to the point where I'm going to these business meetings and I'm sleeping in my car, right? Because I can't afford a hotel room. I'm literally paying for gas with coins out of the cup holder of my car. Dude, I was intermittent fasting before it was cool, right? I would go to a Subway and I'd buy a foot-long sub at noon. I'd eat half of it for lunch. I'd eat the other half for dinner. And
okay, well, I want to stop you right there at this point in time. I think this will be very valuable to everybody that's listening. You have an incredible story, and I want people to understand that this wasn't just a process that you grew into this. You grew into something, and then you went down to rock bottom again. Mm-hmm. And I want to hear the story on exactly the steps that you took to dig yourself out of that hole that you just described. You're there. What were the steps that you took? I mean, I'm sure there's someone who's listening today who is in a difficult spot, maybe hasn't accomplished what they want to accomplish. Maybe they're not where they want to be financially. Maybe they're in a horrible spot like you, where they literally have used all the money that they have in their bank account and they're on credit cards. Mm-hmm. And so I'm interested in hearing your story about how you dug yourself out of the hole. What were the steps that you took?
Yeah. And you're right, man. It was financial rock bottom for me, but I remember hearing this amazing quote that says, rock bottom is the best foundation to start building something new from, right? Like that gives you the basis to start growing and building something better and really learning from it. So it was a very humbling experience. Like I had to borrow money in order to make the minimum payment on my credit card. That's how bad it was. And so the only property that I still had was my primary residence here in Charleston, South Carolina. And my girlfriend at the time, who's actually my wife, who's in
she's gonna hear all the story again. Here we go.
She didn't know when we were going through it, right? And it was one of those conversations. We were dating for 6 years at the time, 7 years, something like that. And it was like, where's this relationship going? Right? So it's all this personal and relationship stress, financial stress. Like, I don't know. I can't see out of where I'm at, right? Like it's one of those things where I just don't know what the answer is. And so the only thing that I could possibly do is I looked at, hey, like I had zero cash, but I had this one asset, this real estate. I went back to real estate and I said, hey, I got this one property. The only thing that I can do is sell it. And it was like my home, right? Like I lived in this area called Mount Pleasant in Charleston, South Carolina. Every day I'd go for a run on the Isle of Palms. Like, just sounds like a nice place to live, right? And it was amazing. But I realized that like I just needed to get a fresh start, right? And I needed to start all over. And so I ended up selling the house, took about $50,000 out, paid down my credit card, paid back some debts that I borrowed in order to make those credit card payments, bought an engagement ring, and then proposed to my wife, moved back to Cleveland, Ohio, which is where I'm from originally. So in 2000, like right around Christmas of 2012, it was a few months after that rock bottom position. I kind of got out of that. And again, I said no more to the network marketing stuff that I was doing. I said, I'm going to get back in real estate. And by burning that ship, all of a sudden doors opened up. And these couple of guys that I met through that network marketing company reached out to me and they said, hey man, we got into this so that way we can have some money to go invest in real estate. Why don't you do the work and we'll put up the money and we'll figure out a way to carve it up. And so,
so what were the steps? So you make that connection, you've burnt your ships, you're now newly engaged, mm-hmm. and you paid off the debts. You had, whatever's left
again, right?
Okay, cool.
Back to Cleveland, Ohio. So
what was the first step?
So the first step was figuring out how do I come back up for air. And that was, I had to get some sort of money or some sort of income in. And I could have gone and got a job, but that would have been, the only real answer was selling my house. And so I had to sell the house. I moved back to Cleveland, Ohio, lived with my parents during this engagement period with my fiance, now my wife. And I didn't know, like I got back to, like I was about to move back to Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm starting looking at properties on like Zillow, and I'm trying to figure out, if I know anybody with some money. And I knew a few people with $10,000, $15,000 or $20,000, but nobody with like a lot of money. But fortunately, it was the bottom of the real estate market. And so usually it's either heavy on deals and not a lot of money, or it's heavy on money and not a lot of deals, right? And so right now it's really easy to go out and get money, but it's really hard to find deals. Back then it was real easy to find super cheap deals, very hard to find money, because everybody's saying run from real estate. And so I didn't know, and I just started making a list of all the people that I knew who had some cash and trying to figure this out. Maybe I'll get a job. And really it was like, as my property sold, as I was getting ready to move back to Cleveland, I just got a phone call where I told somebody I wasn't doing that network marketing business anymore, and I would only be doing real estate. And they just reached out. And so they said, hey, why don't you come out they were in New York at the time, come out to New York, we'll sit down, we'll come up with a business plan. I went out there, it was 2 brothers, and actually potentially 3 brothers, and they each had 22%. I had 33% is what we decided up doing. They put about $300,000 up, and I just started buying cheap houses. We started fixing and flipping single family, like low end houses, so a couple higher end houses. And then I bought some single family, just like hood stuff, right?
What location were you in, or where were you buying? Okay.
I was buying Cleveland, Ohio.
And they're in New York still?
Yeah, they're in New York. They're still running their primary business.
So they're the money behind the operation. You're the boots on the ground, and you're finding the deals, acquiring them, renovating, doing all that wholesale fix flip.
And It's one of those things where, like kind of like when life whispers at you that you should do something or shouldn't do something, and they plant, like, you hear these whispers until finally you just get slapped in the face, right? That kind of happened with that business partnership. And these guys, initially they're like, oh yeah, you do the work, we'll bring the money, and we'll split it 50-50. And in the first conversation, during that conversation, they reneged on that deal and said, hey, how about we split it 66 or 67-33? And I was like, but dude, when you have no options, that's your only option. That's the only door to walk through. That's the only door that you can go through, right? And so that was whisper number 1. Whisper number 2, I'd go out and visit them, and I'm hanging out with them in New York, and we go out to dinner, and they're like, oh yeah, hey man, Tim, we're really excited to be in this partnership with you. We're really excited to build some real estate portfolio with you. And I'm just going to be excited to be able to look across the table and see you as an equal one day. And I was like, what the hell does that mean? Like I understand you mean like from a financial equal, like you're a millionaire, I'm not, but like I'm still a person, right? Like,
yeah.
What does that mean? And so there was never like that respect there, and I put in a lot of work and, tireless work ethic. And I mean, I don't know, like, what it's like getting involved in real estate and buy a small apartment building, and I'm partnered up with these guys, and I'm there working on the project and getting screwed over by contractors and getting chased out with baseball bats from tenants, and the pipes freeze and the boiler system doesn't work any longer. It's the middle of winter, and I got to go to Home Depot or Lowe's or Walmart in the middle of the night and go and drop off space heaters at 11 p.m. on a Saturday night. And all the sacrifices and all these things that you make while you're growing your business, I dealt with it every single day. They passively invested a few $100,000, which ended up being, it came in for a little over $1 million actually over the course of a couple of years. And
so you worked with them for a few years doing these type of deals, fix and flip. You're the boots on the ground, running the operations. Then where did things go from there?
Yeah, so that after that first year of doing a little bit of everything, I really liked the idea of buying rental property and flipping rental properties, because it didn't have this holding cost. It wasn't vacant. It wasn't as emotional as like dealing with somebody who's going to be an owner occupant. If I didn't sell the property, I didn't care because I still had cash flow coming in. If I did sell it, phenomenal. I could do a 1031 and roll it into something else, right? And so we really focused on apartment buildings. We got up to about 130, 140 units over the course of a few years.
With these same partners?
Yeah. So it took about $1 million and turned it into about $3.5 million worth of property. I mean, today, shoot, it probably worth $10 million, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So from Christmas of 2012 to about Christmas of 2015, about 3 years.
Wow.
And it was again one of those things where like I didn't value myself very highly, and so I said, hey guys, I don't want to be in the same position financially as I was before. I don't need much living expenses. Can you pay me $3,000 a month? Is all I wanted from a salary, and they paid me it for about a little over a year. It was about 15 months, and then they just took it away, right? And so essentially they said, hey, we had a bunch of money in a 1031. We were going to roll into something else, but we didn't have the cash flow. And they're like, hey, we don't have the cash flow to pay that. We just can't pay you a salary anymore. Sorry. And then it was like a year later, we sold some property and we sold some flips and we made some income that we had to deduct or had to pay taxes on. And I wasn't making any money from this. And all of a sudden I had this tax bill come up. I'm responsible for a third of it because I'm a third owner, but I didn't have any of the money in order to pay it. And they just kind of expected me to figure it out, right? And they wouldn't even offer any sort of like distributions in order to pay that tax liability. So it was like a really, it was just, thing after thing after thing after thing. And then all of a sudden I go and get my real estate license. I start brokering real estate in order to just kind of keep my head above water again. I had a daughter on the way, and like my wife was pregnant with our first child. And all of a sudden,
what year is this? What year is that?
2015.
Okay.
2014, 15.
Okay, great.
And
so you went and got your real estate license. You started brokering to make some money.
It was February 2015. Yeah, I got my real estate license, and my daughter was born in April of 2015. And then,
so did you cut ties with them completely?
No, we still owned a bunch of property, but I didn't have a salary, didn't have any income, didn't have any money for tax liability. I started brokering real estate, and then they came in. They're like, "Hey, man, I think we're entitled to 67% of all your brokerage commissions too." And that was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back. That and another deal that we were going through, they had some stuff on their record where they couldn't qualify for a loan. We had always done everything in cash. Everything was good on my part, but they had some trouble qualifying, and the banks wouldn't lend to them. And they essentially, asked me to do some things that I wasn't comfortable doing. And between that and me brokering and them asking for money and all that stuff, everything culminated, and we both started lawyering up, and we went at each other's throats. And it was a really, really stressful time for a couple of weeks there. And eventually we just said, hey, listen, the only people getting rich here are going to be the attorneys. Let's just sit down. Let's figure this out. Let's liquidate the portfolio, right? We don't want to be partners anymore. Let's just sell everything. And so that's what we ended up doing. So that happened in like end of 2015. We decided to start liquidating the portfolio. In 2016, we sell everything. And what that allowed me to do, though, is eliminate the non-compete that I had and start buying other properties. So end of 2015 is when I started building up my current portfolio, 3,400 doors that I have today. And so I had enough of a reputation where people knew that I kind of bought apartments. I never really did it to a big scale, but I was kind of doing it before anybody else was.
Yeah.
And, so I had a little bit of caught the wave a little bit sooner.
And I'm assuming that your portion of that portfolio was also a chunk of capital that you now had free to be able to deploy and move forward on your own.
In 2016, when it started liquidating, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Now we had to pay them back first, right? And then as other properties sold off on the tail end after they've been made whole, so I started getting my money in like end of 2016, and then like beginning of 2017, I think is when I got totally cashed out.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, I had some money that came in from that, so that helped, do everything. I went back into flipping turnkey houses, single family houses, and I built up one of the largest residential management companies in Greater Cleveland. Ended up selling that because I didn't want to do that anymore. That's when I had the epiphany of, hey, I built up a couple hundred units from 2015 into like 2017. Again, so I built up another few hundred units just on my own and with some other partners and joint ventures. So I don't like partnering and getting married to business partners, but I love joint ventures on a one-off type, right?
Deal specific.
Exactly. If that one deal goes south, and it's one deal, it doesn't adversely affect the rest of your portfolio. So like this one partnership breakup did, I had to sell everything that I dedicated, 4 years of my life to. And so it was really, really stressful. There were some really good buildings that I would have loved to keep that are worth, 3 times as much as what we paid for them today. So hindsight's 2020. What it did was it opened me up, right?
Yeah.
So
okay, so now you're 2016. You're back on your own. You're starting to do some more fix and flip stuff. How did you make this transition into where you're at today, which is really, from what I understand, 100% focused on larger apartment buildings and, for the most part, joint venturing on all of those deals, if I understand your model correctly. So maybe if you can sort of walk us through that portion. How did you make that transition into where you're at today?
Yeah, so I never got into I just post on social media to try to give, right? I truly believe that wealth is an abundant type thing. It's like sunshine. You getting sunshine doesn't take any sunshine away from me, right? And so I don't know. I just try to give and I try to educate and share information with people. And what happened was just telling people that I was buying apartment buildings and how I was structuring them. All of a sudden, these deals started coming to me from residential wholesalers, residential flippers, residential brokers that didn't know how to underwrite an apartment building, but they came across those deals and they just started sending them to me. And so I bought this little, I bought a 9-unit building and turned it into my office. And I rented out, kept 2 of the offices for me and my team, and then rented out the other 7 units to other investors, entrepreneurs, small business owners, and turned a liability into an asset, right? And then I bought this 11-unit mixed-use building in a downtown, cool historical area, bought it for pretty cheap. And then I came across this 20-unit building. And then during this process, I was also sponsoring loans and raising money for another guy down in Georgia. And so we picked up a couple hundred units down there as well. And so I ended up having my own team up in Cleveland, and then I had this joint venture partner. And it was almost like a 2-layer conversation when I sat back in 2017 thinking, 90% of my net worth is coming from apartments, 10% is from the other stuff, and it's only 10% of my time that I'm spending on the apartments. It was really because I had partnered up with joint venture partners who were doing all of the day-to-day active operations, right? I was doing more of a loan sponsorship and raising of the money, and then doing some asset management and some kind of capital type management type stuff on an ongoing basis as well. And so by doing those things, it was a very limited amount of time that it really took me, though, to dedicate to that. And I'm thinking, one, I like apartments a lot better. It's more scalable. It just meets my goals, my ambitions and stuff much better than the single family stuff did. But also another, a deeper layer to that was I love these joint venture partnerships that I am pretty passive in for the most part. It's pretty active when we're acquiring properties, but from then on, I'm pretty passive in this stuff. And
can you give us an example of let's say a recent deal you've done with a joint venture partner and what your role has been in that process?
Yeah. So for the most part, we handle, I've been A to Z on apartment buildings. I know everything. You can't pull the wool over my eyes. I've lost money on every single aspect of buying an apartment building. Right. And so because of that, we're very good mentors and very good coaches and very good, asset managers to make sure that somebody who's newer, who might not have that amount of experience, doesn't fall on their face like we did early on. So typically when I post on social media, or if I shoot out an email to my email list, or I do a coaching event and people start sending me deals, typically we're looking to be mostly I can sponsor loans, I can raise the money, raise the equity, bring some of my own equity as well, and where we're doing a lot of asset management type stuff. So that's anything that can be done remotely. So we're hopping on a phone call. Let's say you and I partner up on a deal, and let's say we found a property in whatever. I'm buying some stuff in Springfield, Illinois, right? So we find an apartment building in Springfield, Illinois. You're local to Springfield, Illinois, and we'll sponsor the loan. We'll raise some money, and we'll do the asset management. So we hop on a phone call every single Monday with our joint venture partners, the project managers and the property management company. And we just do kind of like a roll call and go over all the KPIs, all the key performance indicators and all the metrics to make sure that the needle's moving forward on that deal. And so if it's not, then we hop in and we share our resources and make sure that the scope of work is where it needs to be and all those different things. And then if it is, and we're checking that, then perfect. We handle all the capital management because it's usually our investors that are in a fund of ours. The capital.
So if I sorry to cut you off there. So if I have this correct, basically you've really gained a ton of experience, just life experience and apartment investing experience, everything that you've done, and people came to know you as the apartment guy.
Yep.
People then source deals in their local markets, if I'm understanding this correctly. Mm-hmm. Most of your joint venture partners are people that are boots on the ground in their local markets that source an opportunity, but maybe they don't have the capital, maybe they don't have the experience, maybe they don't know how to underwrite a deal. So they reach out to you and say, hey, Tim, I've got this deal in my local market here. I feel like it could be a good deal. And you help them in actually take that deal down. Am I understanding your model correctly?
100%. So we assist.
Awesome.
Like we actually almost rip the ball out of their hands and just let them watch from a third party vantage point, like a fly on the wall.
Yeah.
How the negotiations go, how the due diligence is done. And so they're getting an MBA in real estate just from watching us in the operations side. So, and they're getting equity in this deal. So depending on whatever they're involved with,
sure,
versus what they're not involved with, and how much value they need from us versus how much value they can bring, we'll carve up the equity in a way that makes a lot of sense for everybody, and it's kind of done as one of those, I don't even know what it's called. It's like one of these buy and sell agreements where, Dave, if you make an offer to me to buy me out of our company that we own together, you got to be willing to take the same offer, the same valuation, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it's done. It's like, hey guys, if you want me to sponsor the loan, here's how much I would expect for sponsoring the loan. If you want to sponsor the loan, or you want to bring somebody else in to sponsor the loan, that's no problem. That's what you can expect, right?
Yeah.
And so it's very transparent about how we partner up and what we, what the equity breakdown and all that kind of stuff looks like. And so if they're finding the deal and they're boots on the ground and they're overseeing renovations, but then we're bringing in third-party management and my team's doing asset management, we're raising the money and we're sponsoring the loan, whatever, and we can carve it all up. The equity investors get a certain percentage of the deal, and then we get a certain percentage.
That's awesome, man. And I think it's a valuable service and really just a ton of value that you offer to those that want to get into this space. Maybe they're willing to put the elbow grease into finding the deal and sourcing the deal, but maybe they don't have the confidence or the resources or the connections or the balance sheet to be able to go and take the deal down on their own. And what a great opportunity to partner with someone like you and your team that has a ton of experience. So that's awesome. I'd like to, we've gone a little bit longer. So if you have a few more minutes, I'd like to dive into this particular deal, the 48 unit in Cleveland, and just dive into some of the nitty gritty on this specific deal. So if you can, maybe just describe the asset to us.
Yeah, bought a 48 unit, garden style apartment building. It's 3 stories in a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio called Sheffield Lake. And it's about a block off of Lake Erie. And half the units actually can see part of the lake. The other half, look at some wooded area. It's probably like I don't know, if you'd arbitrarily graded, I'd grade it like a B- kind of an area. Decent area, decent schools, not the best. You're not, longing to go and move to that area, but it's a good area, great for rental properties. And so come across this deal through a joint venture partner. And this guy of mine who actually rents the office in my apartment building, or in my office building next to mine. And he's like, hey man, I really want to get into apartments. Like, what do I need to do? I was like, dude, shoot out an email to your residential investor list and tell them that you want to buy an apartment building. You're looking for an apartment building. And I said, you just got to ask for it, right? All these people try to be this super secret agent, and they don't tell anybody they're buying apartments, and they just expect deals to come to their inbox, and it doesn't happen. You got to tell people that you're buying apartments. And so he shoots out this email, and some residential wholesaler had called on a lead and said, hey, miss, would you like to sell your house? And the lady said, no, I don't want to sell my house, but I have this apartment building I don't want. My husband and I have owned it for forever, and it's fallen apart, and we just don't want to deal with it anymore. And so this wholesaler, this woman, the wholesaler was a woman too, sends it over to my buddy. He's like, hey man, take a look at this. Does this make sense? 48 units, and we got it for $1.4 million. So it was less than $30,000 a unit. And I just bought this about 18 months ago, maybe a little more than 18 months ago. And but it needed another $500,000 worth of work. So we had to put We did flooring, paint, fixtures, to spruce up the mechanicals, did some exterior work, did a parking lot, redid the roof, had a bunch of plumbing issues that popped up, and all those different. Also, we're actually probably into it for more like 650 now, I think, with some of the plumbing stuff. So we're all into this thing for, let's say, $2.1 million all in, with closing costs and everything.
How'd you finance it?
Went to a local bank.
Okay.
So my business model is a little bit different than traditional syndicators. I like a lot of traditional syndicators, a lot of the gurus out there, they teach you to go and find something that's stabilized. The issue with that, though, is if it's stabilized, the seller's not that motivated. And so you're going to be paying a retail price for that property. And then you have to speculate on appreciation for the next 5 or 7 years in order to hope that values go up and hope interest rates stay down and hope that you can refinance or sell it 5 to 7 years from now. And that's cool. Like that makes sense for some models. And for me, coming from the residential side of always doing the value add,
deep value add deals, repositioning the asset.
Yeah, and flipping houses and stuff. I would never want to be all into a property for more than 65 cents on the dollar, because then I'm into it for too much. So when I got into apartments, I never went to a course. I never read a book on this stuff. I just kind of took the same philosophies from residential flipping and brought it into apartments. And so what naturally just made sense is I need to be all in for 65% of the after repair value, or of the stabilized value. So on a building that's worth $10 million, I need to be all in for $6.5 million. And if it's going to cost me $1 million to renovate it, that means my maximum allowable offer, the most I can pay for it, is $5.5 million. If I can't buy for $5.5 million, then I walk from the property.
It's not a deal that you're interested in.
Right. And so it's a very strict buying criteria. But when you're at that low of a basis, you have a lot of different options. And we have a lot of different options. Yeah. You can refinance it at its current value or its current loan amount, refinance it above the current loan amount, maybe leave the current loan in place, just let it cash flow, right? Or turn around and sell it, or seller finance it, or anything else. So I'm going to deviate from the 48 unit real quick, because I know everybody's thinking in their minds, okay, Tim, how the heck do you find deals that you can buy for 55% of ARV? Mm-hmm. And the reality is they're out there all the time. There's people getting divorced that need to liquidate all their assets before they can finalize their divorce. They're pretty motivated. There's probate deals, estate deals where people pass away. Kids don't want to have it. They'd rather have the cash than some cash flowing asset. They don't understand the value of building wealth, right? So they just, and they'll take a deep discount in order for somebody to come in quick. I buy a lot of my properties from entrepreneurs who don't know what the hell they're doing. Not real estate people, right? Like these brokers what do I call them? The Wall Street guys out of New York City that I bought the 700 units from. They just, the two primary sellers of mine are entrepreneurs who are not real estate investors full time. They made money in another business. They parked it in real estate. They got hosed by a management company or contractors. And they're just like, before both ships sink, I just need to dump this one, go back to my primary business that works. So that's one of them. The other one is kind of like this seller of the Sheffield deal, is a mom and pop who have owned it for 20, 30, 40 years. They've sucked all the cash flow out of it, never reinvested anything into improving the building. And they painted themselves into a corner where they can't do anything. They're not financeable, and they don't have the cash to go and reinvest it into it. And they just need to dump it for pennies on the dollar. So cool. That's the two primary sellers. And you can find these people everywhere, the same way that you find them on the residential side. Direct mail, drive for dollars, dial for dollars. Talking to your local vendors and resources and contractors and CPAs and real estate attorneys and management companies. And go on Google search apartment buildings in your local area and look for all the worst reviews. Those are all pretty motivated owners, because they're getting probably beat up by the city for not taking care of the property. They're definitely getting beat up by tenants on their reviews. They're probably not making any money because nobody's moving in there. There's a lot of different things like that. Go and hang out at eviction court. Meet all the attorneys and management companies and landlords that are at eviction court. That's usually the most motivated a landlord typically is. Like, I'm not making any money. I got to spend all this money. I got to renovate the property. I got to pay a leasing agent. And that's really aggravating. And so hang out at landlord associations. Yeah. So there's a lot of.
Thanks for going into some detail on that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, man.
Okay, so move into a little bit on the deal structure on this particular deal and how you structured that.
Yeah, so the guy who brought me the deal, he found it and he was kind of like our boots on the ground and contract project manager on the project. So I think he got about like 25% equity in the deal overall. And so I don't syndicate, right? So my model is I syndicate in a different way. I don't raise money and then give 80% of it up to the investors, and then they get 80% of the cash flows and 80% of future sales proceeds, and then we sell it in 5 years from now. I don't like that model because I don't think it's congruent with how much work has to go into finding deals and renovating deals these days. And I don't like paying retail price, and I don't like that the operators can sometimes nickel and dime the project and the investors make no money if it's not performing. I also don't like the timeline of waiting 5, 7 and speculating on all that kind of stuff. And so for a lot of reasons, I don't like the traditional syndication method, at least for my model. And so my model is I can buy something at a low enough basis and force appreciation. I can create the appreciation by pushing it up, by doing these value add improvements, and really increase the value in a very short period of time, 6 to 18 months typically. That allows me to then go and get like an agency loan and refinance the property at 70% loan to value, right? So it's worth 10 million. I only owe 6.5. I get a loan for $7 million. I cash out my investors in 12 or 18 months. And there's a little bit of refi proceeds. So then we divvy that up amongst all the owners. And then although the investors are paid out, I give them equity in the deal and forever. So they have about 20% ownership in the deal for forever. So now they're seeing me as a long-term partner, and they want to roll the money right into another deal, and another deal, and another deal. And so, and it leaves enough juice in the squeeze for me and the operating partners to ensure that, all the work and all the front end lifting that we're putting into this thing, we're going to be compensated for. So like I usually don't take, I took my first acquisition fee like 2 months ago. I've never taken an acquisition fee up until 2 months ago. And I don't take asset management fees. I don't take capital events fees. I don't take fundraising fees. I don't take like any of the fees that a lot of other syndicators take because I want to be in the boat rowing in the same direction as the investors. So my goal is to get them their money back as soon as possible because that's when I get paid. And that's when they take their chips off the table. So now we all have a common goal. We all have a common vision. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Thanks for going into some detail.
Yeah, so that's what I did on this one. So I went and I raised, we got a bank loan for 1.6. And I raised about $450,000 from private money. So this guy brings in 450 grand. He gets 20% of the deal. My other buddy had 29%. We have 51%. And he did all the boots on the ground work, all the project management work, found the deal, and it was really that person. We sponsored the loan. We raised the money. We did asset management. We did property management at cost because this was local to my own market as well. And so that's how we kind of navigated the whole thing. And it's been about 18 months, and we're going through the refinance right now. It just priced for $3.5 million. And so we'll get we can probably get up to an 80% loan. I don't think I'm going to take an 80%, but let's say we take a 75% loan, $3.5 million. What is that? 7 and
you're better than I am.
Yeah, $900,000, $875, I think is what it is. So 3.5 minus 875 is about, 2.6 million. So we'll take about $500,000 off the table, tax-free refi proceeds, pay back the investor, have a, now there's no money invested. Like it's only house money, right?
Yeah.
In play. And when that's the case, now I can hold this thing for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Now I can let the principal get paid down. Now I can let the property normally appreciate, and I don't have to get my investors any money back. And 10 years from now, I can decide if I want to refinance again, if I want to sell, or whatever we want, or just keep on paying down the current loan. And so that's how wealth is built. Wealth is built by holding onto assets, not by syndicating and then selling it 5 years. If you do that, you just have a high-paying job. You got to go do it again in order to get paid again. And for me, I want to build wealth. And I've noticed that, all the ultra high net worth individuals in this world, they all focus on balance sheet, not necessarily on income. Now, you need income, you need cash flow, obviously, as well, but they really focus on building their balance sheet versus whatever their month or their annual income is. Yeah. And so that's where I've been focused for the past couple of years. And, it just, you got to plant the seeds, man. And understanding that you're not going to come across 3,400 units immediately. Right. And, but if you're planting seeds, I've been planting seeds since 2009, and all of a sudden Guess what? Deals are popping from seeds I planted 10 years ago. And all of a sudden, somebody that I just reconnected with, now that I'm back down in Charleston. So full circle. I used to run on this beach every single day when I was broke in 2012 because I couldn't afford a gym membership, right? And so I'd ride my bike to the beach. I'd go for a run. I'd say, I don't know how, but someday I'm going to buy one of these friggin' beach houses. I don't know. And they're all $4 million or more, right? Like that's the minimum on these things. And comes full circle, dude. 90 days ago, closed on a beachfront house on the ocean right here in
that's great.
Charleston, South Carolina. So
congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. But the moral of the story is you got to plant seeds, right? And some of those seeds are going to sprout in 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months, 5 years, maybe 50 years. Maybe some of them get dried up. Maybe some of them get burned out by the sun. Maybe some of them don't have enough water, or not enough soil, or they never take root, right? But the reality is if you don't plant seeds, you will never have a harvest. You have to plant seeds. And although you don't see it working, it is working underneath the surface, right? Like there are, a seed has to take root before it grows up, right? So it's working and it's growing underneath the soil. And although we don't see it, it's kind of like working out, dude. Yeah, I mean, how many times do you see people like they work out every single day, like blood, sweat, tears, pain, aching muscles for 30 days, and there's no difference in their body? It's because you're just getting the momentum built up. And it's not until 60, 90, 120 days later where you even start seeing your own physical changes in your body. And it's not until about 6 months later where people are like, David, hey, man, you look good. You've been working out, man. You look a little bit more trim, and you're like, dude, I've been working my tail off for the past 6 months on this, and you're just now seeing results.
Right.
But they've been planting the seeds and they've been getting that compound effect in motion that entire time until all of a sudden it looks like they're an overnight success, right?
Man, well, look, Tim, you've been gracious with your time, and I appreciate you staying on longer than you had committed to and sharing a lot of detail. You have an incredible story, and I love that you are willing to be transparent and really share the bumps and the bruises along the way. And I think this is a good time for us to talk about a little bit about your training program. And I think you only do it 4 times per year, commercialempire.com, your coaching program. Tell us just a little bit about that, just in case there's someone out there listening to you that's inspired by your story that wants to learn or be a part of what you got going on.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Yeah. And listen, I'm not a guru. I'm a do-ru, right? So right. I go out and do deals, and every time I post about a deal, people are like, hey, can I sell you a deal? Can I buy a deal from you? Can I lend you money? Can I joint venture, or can I pay you to coach me on this stuff?
Right.
And so I thought, hey, this is a way, because I built up a big management company and I hated the overhead. And so, but I love these joint ventures. And so it goes back to like, why I got into real estate and why I got into commercial apartments and why I got into doing joint venture deals. I'm like, you know what? I could probably train some people, educate them, and guess what? They can go out and buy their own apartment buildings and we give them all the information that they need. But there's gonna be some people who are like, hey, I can do the work. I know how to manage construction and contractors and subs, and I can do this. I can be boots on the ground. I can do property management, but I need access to capital, or I need somebody to sponsor the loans for me. And there's going to be other people who are like, hey, I got money, man, but I don't want to do any of the work that you're doing, Tim. Can I invest with you? And so I realized that coaching and mentoring and helping other people out with this stuff creates additional opportunities for me too. And so I'm very transparent about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want to come in and go and do deals, I give you everything, dude. You got my operating agreement that cost me $8,400 to put together. You have my syndication documents that cost me $15,000 to put together. You have all these checklists and all these process maps and all these things. And I go through everything. I go through how we find off-market deals, some really ninja tricks on how to find off-market deals. I go through how my strategy is a little bit different than traditional syndication. We talk about how to underwrite deals in a 2-minute snapshot versus having to go through this real extensive calculator that a lot of people have. I talk about how I raise private money and how I structure these deals. All the operations side, I have my COO come in, I have my director of acquisitions come in, I have my syndication attorney come in, who's actually now my chief investment officer, my commercial mortgage broker, all these different people, all my resources, my entire power team, my estate planning attorney comes in, my CPA, everybody sits on a panel and answers questions. And we go through everything, all the operations, and we get into some business development stuff, how I built my team, how I compensate my employees, all that. So it's we get some amazing, like, just off the charts reviews, off the charts results that students are having, and really, really proud of it. So I don't have enough time to do it all the time, but we do 4 of them a year. I partner up with an education company that they handle all the logistics. I show up and I coach, and then I partner with students on deals. So if they got deals, they need money, come to me, I can help. And they're going to meet some awesome other people in the room. They don't have to partner with me either, but
sure. Where can people learn more about that?
Commercialempire.com is the best website. Just fill out the form. Somebody from my team will give you a call and get you details on the next event. And again, we have one in February, at the end of February, another one in May, another one in, I think, August. And so, no, September, first week in September, actually, here in Charleston. It's going to be cool. And yeah, so they're all over. Like, when I'm up in Cleveland for the summer, we're up in Cleveland. When I'm down here in Charleston, we're going to do some events down here. My partners are in Tampa, so we do several events in Tampa. And yeah,
that's great, man.
Yeah, it's cool. It opens up a lot of opportunity. We had a really, really cool community of just great people. So it's awesome. We'd love to have anybody out and
great.
Yeah, connect.
Well, that's commercialempire.com, guys. Feel free to reach out to Tim and his team there. Tim, I can't thank you enough for coming on, spending some time with us, sharing your story and your journey into the real estate world, the roller coaster that it's been, and where you've come full circle now back in South Carolina on the beach house. And man, congrats on all your success in the last couple of years and what's been happening. And again, thank you for coming on and sharing your story. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, man. And again, thank you for all the value. You did a great job of extracting a lot of that. That was deeper than I've gotten with in any other conversation.
Hey, I like to hear that. I like to hear that. That's what we like.
Great job extracting information. So thank you. Thank you for all the value you've given, and appreciate everything.
Okay. Have a great day.